Legal Foundations for Global Entrepreneurs, Navigating the Corporate Labyrinth with our speaker, Elizabeth Miner. Navigating the complex terrain of international corporate law is paramount for today's entrepreneurs. With vast experience from the Judicial Supreme Court and elite corporate roles at Fortune 500 companies like Apple, international law paralegal Elizabeth Miner offers a session brimming with insights. Attendees will gain an understanding of the intricacies of corporate documentation, learn to sidestep common legal pitfalls, and benefit from Elizabeth's unique blend of judiciary and corporate expertise. Join to ensure your venture is both market ready and fortified for the global stage.
Well, welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be here.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get straight to it. Let's talk about a little bit how, what has happened in your history to get you to this point in your career, or what's your driving why?
So it's actually kind of two different questions because I'm an accidental international corporate paralegal. I started into the business, ground up, and I apprenticed my way through. I worked in a large insurance managed care company where I worked under attorneys and developed a paralegal role, and then moved from there into boutique law firms and did a variety of things. Even I spent a year under the esteemed Lawrence Tribe, who is a Supreme Court litigation counselor and also wrote the treaties that almost every law student has used for con law. So that was an honor, and was with him as he argued several cases in the Supreme Court, which was exciting and nerve-wracking and all the things. But I really landed into corporate law when I had spent a year abroad, and I came back and I sat down with this boutique law firm, and I was kind of squidgy about corporate law because I thought it was kind of boring and form-like. And when I sat down with one of these lawyers and I said, why corporate law? Why not litigation or something fun? He said, Here we build things. And I was like, I'm in. I am in.
Wow.
And so I've been in corporate law ever since, and working with entrepreneurs and startups. It's very creative because no two startups are the same. They don't have the same issues. All of the different categories that startups and entrepreneurs are working in, whether it's international and it's managing those international laws, or whether it's domestic and it's just creative and innovative. There's so much to work with. So that's where I found my love. And during 2008, when the economy was kind of getting a little iffy, I moved over to corporate in-house, and I worked with Thermo Fisher, which is a multinational Fortune 500. And from there, I got courted over to Apple and worked with Apple. And that's where I ended my corporate career until just recently. So I've had just a variety of exposures. And it's just been such a fascinating thing. And I just keep coming back to the entrepreneurs and the startups because that's where the lifeblood is.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, I'm sure you have so many case studies that you could share with us about what has happened. I guess, so long as they're not private, but what common obstacles or pitfalls that entrepreneurs face when they're starting out, or that they're not even aware that exist until they're fronted with either a legal battle or some sort of restriction from the government.
There's so many. I mean, first off, entrepreneurs try and do everything themselves.
Yeah.
They can't. You got to learn to delegate early on, right? One of the things that I'm always super conscious of is getting your corporate records right. Because, when I was working in the boutique law firm, we were working with series fundings and IPOs and acquisitions. And constantly what happened was everybody's like, oh, wait, I needed to get what filed? Oh, wait, we were supposed to do an annual meeting. items, if you make sure that those are reviewed annually, you'll avoid that scramble at the last minute, which is just so unfortunate.
Yeah, and I'm sure it leads to the prolonging of the actual sale, especially if you're in an exit strategy or something of that sort and you're looking to get out. It just makes that process, rather than 3 months, it's 9 months, a year or more, because you have to do all the backlog. So as entrepreneurs, startups, if you're listening, take note. If you're just starting out, start on a good foot. If you're already in that situation, Elizabeth's the person to get in contact with.
Yeah,
Sort it
and
out.
just review your things, and Chat GPT is not a legal document provider, please. Whatever you do, that's not a good source.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of us have become very reliant on Chat GPT because of its ability, and it's just, really fast, but it's not credible. We
Yeah,
know this.
and it's certainly not for legal stuff. So that's some of the things I see. One of the other things that I see for entrepreneurs, especially most recently, is everybody is looking for VC financing.
Mm,
And that's great. Go out and get the funding if you need it.
mm.
But realize there are multiple vehicles to get funding, and not all of them are equity based. You don't have to give up the farm to get funding. And that's something that, oftentimes when I'm talking to people, they don't realize all the various options that are available. Shark Tank is a great show, but it's made people think that that's the only way to get funding is by giving up equity. And that's too bad, because what you also do is give up control of your company. And I have seen founders de-seated from their company
Yeah,
because once the VC comes in, they have control. And while it might be the right move for the business, you have to understand that that is a possibility. And you might be a great founder and a terrible CEO, and
that's true.
that's okay. It really is okay. Just because you're the founder does not mean you have to be the CEO, but you want to make those choices and you want to
Yeah.
be aware that you are losing some control. It's no longer 100% your company.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it ties so nicely into the other sessions that we have. There's a speaker who's speaking about, alternative lending as opposed to just the banks, and making sure that whatever lending you are taking is reported, so you build corporate credit and all of that stuff. So very nice integration.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so stepping back a bit, if you are, mid-size enterprise, you're not necessarily like, one of the big corporate guys. You're not in that league, but you still have to sort through this. In sort of given the trends of our audience, if they're facing some sort of budget, let's say, or a financial constraint, are there alternatives for them to consider legal help?
Absolutely. And it really is something that people it legal costs are cost prohibitive. But here's the thing. I was talking with a gentleman from one of these big law firms, and he said, go to the people that you want to go to, no question. However, the larger law firms might have a little more wiggle room to actually extend your payment plan,
Mm,
where a smaller law firm where you feel like, oh, that might be a better budget for me, they might not have as much bandwidth to absorb maybe a discount or a payment plan.
mm,
So don't discount the fact that you could go to a larger law firm. Piecemealing it is not a really great idea. Um, During our conversation, that was one of the questions was, can you start off at a small law firm and then go to a big law firm? And yes, but if you go to a bigger law firm, they have everything from the start, and they know what the documents are. They know that they've been done correctly. They're not reviewing them, which takes time and money, right, to make sure, or correcting them, or setting them up for your projected, destination. When you start off as a small business, you may not have the forethought to where you want to go and create your legal documents that set you up for that. So really take the time to interview lawyers, find out if there's an opportunity to really kind of pace out your legal fees, and find a way to work with them. One of the things that this gentleman in the large law firm said is, we're really invested in building the relationship. So we want to help you really be able to grow your business. And that's really something that I don't think people look at. They look at the expense.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
there's value in that relationship. And having worked in a boutique law firm with entrepreneurs and startups, one of the things that I think businesses fail to recognize is these law firms have relationships with other larger companies that are seeking to acquire smaller companies. They have relationships with VCs because they're doing financings and fundings, right? So they have relationships that they can introduce you to. So there's so many things that you can get out of a law firm. Don't discount the value in getting good legal counsel.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. So another speaker, the same speaker that I was referring to before, I think he has an affiliation with Legal Shield. Have you ever heard of Legal Shield?
I have.
So, yeah. So the question, I mean, I'm sure my audience is also wondering this because I'm wondering it. How do you assess these types of opportunities that are often presented to entrepreneurs? And, we don't have the legal knowledge. We don't have that expertise to determine whether or not this option is better than that option. So what's your advice to navigating all these different, alternatives that are presented to us? How do we make the right choice?
One of the things is ask your fellow entrepreneurs. Like, you need to be in a community of other entrepreneurs. What's working for you? And your type of business. If your type of business is heavy IP, like that might have a higher risk, and you might
Definitely.
have a lower risk tolerance. So there are a number of different types of legal options, and a number of legal firms do offer some pro bono work. I now work with an organization called New England Legal Foundation, and one of the things that we are launching beginning of 2024 is called the Equalizer Institute. And what that is going to be doing is providing free legal resources for small businesses as they are starting out, so that they can get that foundation right, and then moving them through their legal journey. But so there are organizations out there that are looking to help small businesses. There are law firms that are looking to partner with mid-sized companies and help them grow, and they will work with you. And then there are these outsourcing and fractional general counsels that you can hire. So it really just depends. Find out what the people that are in compatible businesses to yours are doing, and what their experiences are. That's going to give you a sense.
That is, maybe the through line throughout this whole summit. Every single expert has been saying, just talk to other entrepreneurs. It's all about the relationship. In order to rise, you have to communicate with other people. You have to link arms. So exchanging this information is part of you getting to the next level. And it pays off because you make the more informed decision by doing that way. So I did see that on the site on the New England Legal Foundation that you guys were launching this initiative, and I didn't realize that it was launching in January of next year. So that's good to know. And
We
I
don't
guess,
have January, but it's 2024.
oh, okay, sorry. So let's be
That's
clear. In
okay.
2024, it's launching, sometime in 2024.
Yeah.
But I imagine that there probably be a quota to how many people they can serve. But it's good to know that there are other alternatives that are also doing something similar. And if you're not in the New England area, then you can look for something that's maybe more local or an alternative. Um, so so having said that, as either a startup and or an established entrepreneur in quarter four, what are the absolute like essentials that they must have ready before the year comes to an end?
Well, this is the perfect time to really review your records, review your organizational documents, make sure you're doing everything you say you're supposed to do and you have agreed to do, either for your shareholders, your members, or just the corporation in itself. Regardless of your structure, just make sure you're following the rules that you signed and agreed to with wherever you organized your company. Make sure that's in place. Make sure that you understand the rhythm of your business. Are you heading into the final quarter? Is it your busy season? Is it your winter season where you get to recharge and regroup? Are your financials in order? Are you ready for tax season? Are you ready for the end of the fiscal year? What resources do you need? What are the lessons learned from earlier this year that you want to really consider? What do you need to clean up before the end of the year? Those things you really take stock in Q4. Review, review, and just make sure everything is in place so that you go into 2024 or whichever the next year is at the time that you're watching this, that it's clean, that it's set, you have a solid foundation, and you're ready for whatever comes next.
That's so yeah, 100% agreement with that. I think the end of the quarter is a good time to reflect and also to start planning for what's ahead. So take stock of what you have, make sure you are cleaned up or to the best of your ability, and
Right.
if you can't, start to plan for what you can do in the next coming months to clean up whatever
Absolutely.
messes are there. So let me ask you this: if they are in that situation, is there a checklist or something that they could maybe run through to get them started if they're not familiar with this? Like, I mean, I'm thinking we have such a wide range, right, of entrepreneurs. Could be a solopreneur, it could be a startup, it could be someone who's already, they've been doing this for years. But even some people who have been doing it for years don't have everything neatly stacked
Absolutely,
away.
absolutely. I will be providing a checklist that legal lives and dies by their checklists. We do everything that we do the same things over and over again. However, we still have checklists just to make sure everything is done right. Medical procedures are done over and over and over again, but they still have checklists to make sure that all the sponges are counted for, all the tools are back where they belong, right? So
Right.
we do the same in the legal world. And so I have a checklist that I go over with my clients to make sure as we, close out the year, have we filed all the annual reports? Because when you haven't, there are fees that are associated with that. And so let's stop the bleeding, pay the fees, and make sure that you're cleaned up so you're not incurring fees, bringing that cost into the next year, right? Make sure that all the shareholder votes, if there are shareholders, have been done. If not, what do you do to make sure that that's done? Are you true to your goals? Like, review your goals for the year that you set in January, because you did set them in January, right? Review those and make sure you're on track. are they even pertinent still? I believe in a quarterly review of goals, corporate goals, always, because life changes at a drop of a hat these days. So, what you set in January, come June, may no longer be a viable option for you, or you may have been pivoting. And
Right.
so all of a sudden, that's not an element that is even present anymore, right?
Right. Right.
So you want to do that, and you want to make sure that you're still true to your mission of why you started the company. And I know that this sounds silly, but you can be off by 1 degree, and 9 months down the road, that 1 degree becomes 9 degrees, right? Or even
Yeah.
more, because it kind of um, it just it gets exacerbated. So
Yeah.
what you want to do is make sure you're true to your mission. And if you're not, is there a course correction, or is the whole mission need to be reevaluated and really start to, and make sure you communicate that to everybody involved, right?
I
Because
think,
that is really important.
yeah, I think that's actually a really insightful piece of advice, because I think for most of us, well, I can only speak for myself, but the experience is whenever legal is mentioned, it's like, ugh, the paperwork, right? Oh,
Right.
the process and all this stuff. But as you're speaking, it's resonating with me that it's actually also your moral compass. Like, it's
Mm.
the ethical guidelines. So it is very tied to what your mission is, because that's what you set out to do. So it does pull you back in to remind you to what it is that you're doing. So having these quarterly check-ins, or even if they're monthly, week, like some of the experts are saying, do it weekly with your teams, at least to track your progress. But those are always, a sub segment of what your corporate goals are and
Absolutely.
what your main mission is. So these check-ins aren't just for quarter four, right? They should be happening all the time to make sure that you are honed in on what it is that you set out to do. I think that's so valuable. And especially when you're starting up and you're in the hype of like trying to figure it out, it's very easily overlooked.
Yeah, and things change so much when you're just starting out. And then when you get into that mid range, then things could be on autopilot,
Yeah.
and they could be on autopilot going in the wrong direction, right? So you just really tie that in, and ultimately, as you grow, responsibility to your shareholders.
Sorry,
So
you were cutting out a little
these are the
bit, but
things.
I think we're good.
Okay. This is your responsibility to your shareholders, right? This is
Right.
your responsibility, because that's what they have bought into. This is your responsibility to anybody that is a funder of your company. That's what they've bought into. This is what your team has bought into, especially early on, right? If you guys are not aligned in that original mission, or if the mission has changed, that should change some of your other underlying legal documents,
Mhm.
because things are changed, and that has to be communicated properly.
Yeah, such a good point. And I think, the more that I'm speaking to experts, the more I'm realizing it is so important to have your C-suite of executive advisory board, whatever it is that you can just tap into, and make sure that you choose them wisely. Make sure that you're looking, at their experience, and it's not just a dollar value exchange, right? Because
Oh,
there's just so much that can happen in your entrepreneurial journey that you're not even aware. We're all so naive when we start.
yep, yep, starry-eyed, and then, oh wow, I was speaking with an entrepreneur at one point, and she said, "Look, if you want to know if there are skeletons in your closet, start a business. They'll come all crashing out." So.
Yeah, not to scare anyone, but
But at the same time, to be aware, this is not an easy journey. But I think to highlight what you said earlier, so many entrepreneurs think that they need to do this by themselves. They're entrepreneurs. Um, can be a lonely journey. Don't let it be a lonely journey. There is so much to be learned from each other. Find a community. Come to these types of events. This is fantastic what you're doing here. And thank you for that, because more of this has to be done so people don't feel so alone, so
Yeah.
people understand. There's one thing about the known unknowns going into an entrepreneurial journey, but it's the unknown unknowns that really could take you down. So go out there and explore, find out what's going on with other people. You will find things that you're like, wow, I didn't even think about that. Wow, I didn't know that. Now that you know, then you can ask the right questions. You can ask a different question.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Your advice and just your general way of being is so calming, especially for any entrepreneurs who tend to tense up around legal issues or any sort of, document. Like, we're all so visionary. Entrepreneurs are typically very visionary. So they're either a promoter, like, just, yeah, let's do it, let's get it done. And the analytical work sometimes is not their their forte. So they get a little, hermit crab around it. But
Absolutely.
your approach is just so reassuring, I think, and it's very welcoming for anyone who isn't aware of the options that are there. It's very encouraging for others who, could be in a very difficult situation. They're not just startups, right? These are established businesses, and sometimes that's part of it, right? Because you have this ego attached to your experience, and it makes it even more difficult to admit that you have been doing it wrong this whole time. So
There's shame, and it
yeah.
shouldn't be shameful. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. It's okay.
Yeah. And I think having someone like you makes it a lot easier for anyone in that situation to, come to terms and just trust who they're speaking with. I think that's a huge part in deciding who you end up working with. So, Elizabeth, thank you for that.
Definitely. My pleasure.
And then I do have a little bit of a surprise question.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Okay, so I have this mission. I have a mission to encourage other entrepreneurs to network, right? To get out there. So Gain is part of that. It's a platform for them to do that, give some information on all of this. And I'm also realizing it's necessary to demonstrate it. So the way in which I'm doing that is by testing this theory, this 6 degrees of separation.
Okay.
So most of our entrepreneurs are on this sprint, 90-day sprint to increase their numbers. I'm on a 90-day sprint to have a conversation with Elon Musk, because our next series, like the future series, is around risk. So climate risk, AI risk, all of that stuff. Anyways, I want to have a conversation with him. So I have a 90-day sprint to somehow get in contact with him to have this conversation. So I've asked all of our speakers, who do you know in your contacts that could possibly put me in touch with Elon? Or they may know someone who could put me in touch with Elon. You don't have to say it now. You don't have to say it now. It's for our VIP members. We ask the question here, but if you want to know the answer, you have to come to VIP and see how this progresses. I mean, I could totally fall on my face with this little test that I'm doing. But I do believe in the theory of 6 degrees of separation. It's such a small world. So, there's power in the ask. You just ask.
Absolutely. Thank you. You gotta ask. You're in a no state already, so there's nothing to lose with the ask.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want to know the answer, you got to get into VIP. We'll see what Elizabeth says. And if it's possibly the one that puts me in touch with Elon Musk.
There you go.
All right.